said he could do it. It is. White magic.
Video. Worst halftime.
Well, let's get this thing started. Well. I hope you guys can hear me all right. If you can, please type a 1 in the chat. If you can't hear me and I need to adjust some audio, let me know. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. I don't want that overpowering anything. So good to have you guys here. All right. So good to see you guys in the chat. I've been waiting all week. I'll be honest. I can tell you how this live is gonna go, but we're just gonna have some fun. So I see the ones popping up in the chat right now. I've got this open to my side. So if you see me looking down, it's only because of that. I'm gonna switch the camera here in a minute, but I've been waiting for this. And I feel like I did it at the appropriate time and the appropriate way to give the artist himself time to speak to me. So let's talk to everybody in the chat for a second. Let me go ahead and switch this up. All right, that's better. We in here. How's it going, Belle? Megs, thank you for being here. I didn't even know if you were going to be here. Far from heaven. I truly don't even expect that many people to be here because of the subject. And I'm going to get right to it here in a minute. But I want to say thank you to you guys and what you do for this community, this growing community. If you haven't liked, if you haven't subscribed, if it's your first time here, if you think somebody else should be here, let them know. Let them know. David, I think this is the first time that I've actually seen you in the live, but it's only my second live. So what am I mad about? I'm not mad. I'm here to actually have some fun today. All right. How's everybody's week? Honestly, I want to interact with you guys before we get started, but how was everybody else's week? What challenges did you face? What can we talk about before we really dive in? Because we're going to get deep. We're going to have some fun, but we're going to teach a little bit of lessons along the way. There we go. There's Miss Muse. I've been waiting for her to pop in the chat. How you doing? I'm so thankful for you guys being here. All right. I swear it's good to see everybody just be able to pop in. And I know this is a subject that has been all over the internet. But it's truly a blessing to know that art hasn't lost its substance. It hasn't lost its luster. And it's always going to be something that we need. So, Bad Wolf, what is the subject? You about to be the first to know right now. Since you asked the question, I'm going to answer it. We're going to go over what Kendrick Lamar did, the halftime show, and kind of what that means. And of course, being on the opposite side and seeing the mixed reactions, seeing and understanding that there was a lot of controversy. Because no, it was not exactly what I expected. I'm going to talk about that. But it wasn't what I expected, but it didn't mean that I wasn't supposed to learn. And I think that's exactly what I feel like needs to be said. So, we about to get it. Man, David, that makes my day. For you to say it's been a long week, alive from you makes my day. That means a lot to me. I don't play about this. I can tell you right now, when I have deep conversations, I truly try to stop, focus, and just pay attention to what's being said. And I'm gonna get it wrong. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how I got it wrong during this whole time frame. Cause let me paint the picture for you. We're gonna get into it, but I'm still gonna read the comments along the way. So just bear with me. This might go an hour, it might be an hour and a half, who knows? I mean, however long this goes, it's not gonna be 4 or 5 hours. I can tell you that right now. We all got things to do. But let's talk about it. So when I was watching the halftime show, now, for those that don't know, I am about to get out of the military, and then the Super Bowl itself came on at 2:30 in the morning for me. So I can tell you right now, that was tough. That was tough. Just knowing for a fact that I had to kind of deal with that, I knew that I wasn't going to be fully awake. And I'm going to be honest, when the halftime score said 24-0, a brother wanted to go right back to sleep. I wanted to roll right back over on that couch. I had cooked some wings for the day. I had made me some spinach artichoke dip. Yes, I like to cook. We're not going to get into that right now, but I like to throw down. But it was the fact of I don't feel like I was fully alert to truly hear what was meant for me at that time. And I'm okay with that. I'm going to go ahead and cut the music off for a little bit. But I feel as though at that time, I didn't give the artist the proper credit. And that was my fault. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel like it ties into our lives, how it impacts us, and some of the things that we may want to look at. Like, at this point in my life, and especially being in the military, I had to direct a lot of things. I had to tell people, go do this, go do that. But I'm no longer in that portion of my life. And what I have found is when I ask people to consider something, it allows freedom of thought and the freedom of speech. We're going to get back to that. But the freedom of speech to actually give them their own way of doing and feeling what they need to do. The actual premises of the thought process, what needs to be said and how it should be done, should not come from me. Because then I'm programming them, this is going to be important, I'm programming them to do as I say. Not giving them the free speech to actually make their own decisions and be great. And it's all good. Bad Wolf, it's okay. It's okay. I understand. It's definitely not the beef. I am not touching on the beef. I am all good on that. I actually want to stray away from the beef, and that's exactly why I came here. But it's all good. I completely understand. All right, so let me talk about the purpose, since that's exactly what popped up just now. I want to share what I get from my eyes, and then what played a factor into the things that I saw, and then when I stepped back, I saw the realest things kind of pop up, because it's the smallest things that make the greatest impact. So I understand there's a lot of controversy. Kendrick came out, he did a lot of things that were not normal. The entertainment portion of it seemed to be missing. So let's just be honest. How did I feel about it? When I first watched it, I was like, I didn't expect this. I did not look at his catalog and think that Kendrick was going to choose the songs that he did in the manner that he did, and think that it was going to have the same impact, because I understood the messaging, but I didn't want to see that from Kendrick until I took time to step back. Now, what I do understand is sometimes we need to step back in order to understand, because our perspective may not be the perspective that needs to be. So on my initial watch, it was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning at that point, I had a whole lot of things to say, but I thought about it. A couple things that I didn't like. I didn't like the audio. I didn't like exactly what was being said the way that it was said, only because I couldn't really hear the full impact of these songs. And for anybody that's new to Kendrick, I'm going to be very honest. It's very, very similar to the Wrens. There's different subjects. And yes, it is about a culture and building up, but there's so much built into that culture that you really start to have to understand and listen. The difference is we have to want to listen. We have to want to understand what's being said, and that's what interpretation is about. And I see that is the interpretation is the important part of what we need to understand, because the way I think and the way someone else thinks might be completely different. It doesn't mean that either of us is wrong. But I know for a fact that knowing that interpretation is, I need to meet you where you're at. I need to figure out where you're at, what you know, what you understand, versus just judging. Judgment will put you in a place. And then also, if I say I'm not willing to learn, that's why I said this is going to be more of a history lesson. If I'm not willing to learn, then I'm going to be taking steps back when I could be taking steps forward. So there's another video that I'm going to have coming out in a couple days. That actually mentions a couple songs that I wish Kendrick would have did because of the impact on my personal life. And my personal life is going to be completely different than everyone else's. Not everyone else is going to understand the cultural impact of what he said and how it hit me. And I didn't even really go into it, but I did want to say, hey, check out some of these songs in his catalog. Just like you guys guided me through some of the Ren conversations, and here's some things to check out. This is one of those where I'm hoping that I get to educate you on the vastness of his actual albums and that reach. Because what we don't know sometimes is what's important to understand from people that may not have a voice. So America's got a divide. Let's not even BS about it right now. What we see with the political system right now, and I know this could be touchy, and I understand. If people feel as though this is not what they want to hear, I'm not going to stay on the politics too long, but there's a divide. And it does affect people for where they're at and what they've got going on. And you have to understand, how do I navigate that? Think about the old cultures and how they were raised, how they were taught, and then think about in 50 to 60 years, the difference that it's going to actually have. The difference is some of the older generation are not going to be standing and teaching and passing on the history of what was taught to them. This could be a good thing. This could be something that could be used to our advantage, no matter what age we are, no matter where we're at, because we have the spirit of influence. Now, that influence could be that we need to change the thought processes of what is truly being said, what is truly being thought about, because if you had a problem with the halftime show, I'm not mad at you. I'm telling you right now, I had a problem with the halftime show the first 1 or 2 times that I watched it. It wasn't until Apple Music finally put it back up and said, here is all the angles that you need to see. Here's what you need to understand, that I was like, okay, I get it. I get it, and I understand that the messaging was different. The Pulitzer Prize winner, the more than 20-time Grammy winner, is trying to tell me something that I may not be ready to accept just yet. So I'm going to switch it over real quick, and I'm going to play 2 things real quick, because I want to incorporate a couple things that I just want to have discussions about. Now, after each of these, I want you to tell me how you feel. If you didn't like, matter of fact, if you didn't like the halftime show at all, drop a 2. Drop a 2. I don't have any problems with it. Again, it's not going to hurt my heart. I can completely understand that you did not like it, and I'm okay with that. But I'm going to switch this over real quick. Let's listen up.
What a nightmare. This guy, Kendall Lamar, and he won all these Grammys, but we had Usher, we had The Weeknd, we had Beyonce, we had performers. I don't know what the hell this guy was doing.
The music itself is not broad enough or well known enough to reach generations. I didn't like halftime. The worst halftime ever.
Boom! Tell me something. You motherfuckers can't tell me nothing. I'd rather die than to listen to you. My DNA not for imitation.
Worst halftime.
Okay. Very, very simple clip. It's very, very simple. Imitation is not what we try to do in our lives. But I'm gonna start to mold you guys in. I'm gonna start to understand and help you guys understand why, if your history was cast out, if your background was cast out, then you would have a different feeling about what is being said. And I want you to take black out of the whole situation. If you knew for a fact that your culture was slowly being erased, if you knew that the time, effort that your ancestors put in was slowly being erased, how would you feel? Now, let me give you a modern day situation to where people are starting to have issues with it. And if you're not in America, that's fine. I still think that broadening the educational aspect of this whole thing is important. So, if anybody has had veterans that have retired, and you've had people working at the VA, and you've had people that have retired, and now their pensions are starting to come up. One of the biggest conversations right now is cutting off that funding. Think about that. Think about if somebody is cutting off your funding for something that you've worked for your entire life. The sacrifices that have been made are now starting to equate to nothing. Because today you might have this, you have planned your entire life around this, but now you come back and all of a sudden someone says, thank you for your service. I'm not just talking, military service, but thank you for your commitment, your service, your dedication, your inspiration, what you brought to the table. However, we're going to take the table away. Is that not crazy to think about? Because you're going to feel betrayed. The betrayal is where things start to get a little shaky. The betrayal and the understanding of what we put together, what we sacrifice, what we say is true to the game. Jenny, I see you. Jenny, I see you. And we about to get to something real here in a minute. I promise you, I got something directly for you. And it's going to mean a lot to you. And I thank you for being here during this. So, with knowing exactly where this is at, I'm going to tell you how I felt. Once I got done with the Super Bowl halftime show, I felt programmed. And it's one of the reasons why this transition is so important to me, because I have been in this system for 20 years, roughly. And now I am starting to come back to reality. And the reality of the situation is there's a lot going on. But it doesn't just happen in one country. It doesn't just happen in one culture. I've spoken in several videos about there being a hierarchy, but what we don't often talk about is the people that are trying to get ahead, don't have a voice, and are kept down. So I felt programmed, but partially because I felt like, the message that you tried to send, I feel like you should have done a better job. Instead of listening to the artistry for what it was, that was my first take. And I can understand America needing and wanting a different style of music, understanding that there needs to be something else on the table. But when this brother said the revolution should be televised, and you picked the wrong guy, there was so many double and triple entendres on that, because who was in the house? If anybody knows who was in the house during that time, just drop a 3. I don't want to mention names. This is not a political debate. It's not about that. It's truly about you understanding that connection has to be something that we lobby for, versus saying, I don't understand, it does not affect me, and I don't need to know. Because I'm going to tell you exactly how it affects you in your own household. When you truly think about this and the not being able to understand what's happening, think about your children. This is where I want to go with this for a second. If you can't understand where your children are in this whole debacle, this chaos that is going on, how can you relate? They are in a different culture as we are. We might be older. There's probably a different age range that are in this. However, everything and every moment that we don't understand something creates divide. Now, this cultural divide really starts to play into a lot of things. And at that time, again, I'm going to remind you again, I felt programmed. Because one of the things that I pride myself on is being able to relate. When I do my reaction videos, I feel like I can relate with the artist. I felt bad in that moment, to be perfectly honest, because I just couldn't relate to the artist. And it doesn't matter what time it was, if I was tired. And yes, that does play a factor. But at the moment, I was just like, I expected something different. But when people expect something different and they don't know exactly where you're at, have you ever been in that situation? Because if you're trying your best, if you're thinking about what you've given, what you've sacrificed, the commitment, do you not think that plays a factor? All right. So, moving on. Let's start to break it down a little bit.
It's your Uncle Sam, and this is the Great American Game. No, 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 no! Too loud, too reckless, too ghetto! Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play this game? Then tighten up!
Tighten up. Has anyone ever told you, hey, what you're giving is great, but I need you to tighten up? I need you to do better. I need you to be more. Was it for you? Was it for the greater good of where you were going, or was it for the system itself? And like I said, this might be a controversial topic, but I want to integrate you and bring you into this world of the artist. Because I had to sit back, and I watched it again today. I sat on the couch, and it doesn't matter if I look to the left or the right, I had to feel what the artist was giving me. And I had to give it the proper due of what it was. But if you have to be, that's right, Taylor, if you have to be less of yourself to fit into a system, where do you find individuality? Where do you find a way to be better? Where do you find a way to understand that you matter? Because at the end of the day, if you feel inadequate, if you feel as though you don't matter, what can you teach your children? If one, you can't get on their level, and two, you always sitting there and talking about there's always going to be a system, which there will always be a system. That's why it's so important for us to have choice and freedom of speech. Every culture, let's just be honest, every culture has sat back and thought about and understood there are times of oppression. We all have to come together collectively to say something and mean something to get ahead. However, some cultures struggle with that. And I'll be flat out. The black culture is not good at that. And although what people will see is the ghetto-ness, the outspokenness of not playing the system, I never wanted to be told, and thank goodness it never happened to me, but it did happen to LeBron, shut up and dribble. That was said by a reporter himself, shut up and dribble. As an icon, as some kids look up to, and there's icons in every culture. I'm really truly not trying to make this just a one culture type of thing, but I do want to introduce or help people understand exactly where this halftime show had more branches than just on the stem and the roots of the black culture. Because it's important for us to understand that we are human. Jenny, I see you. Yes, we are actually told to not be human in any way. We are not told to be ourselves. But the thing that we hope for in life is to be free enough to speak, freedom of speech, to say that we matter, our voices matter, and we are heard. Because in a relationship, what is the first thing that we ask of our partners? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because if you can't be heard, you can't be understood. And that's why this Super Bowl halftime performance it might have been by the wrong person at the wrong time. And I'll be honest, once the score said 24-0, there was so many reasons to hope that Kendrick was going to bring back some of those classics and give a little bit of nostalgia to the whole scene. But it didn't happen like that. But let's not forget, this man is a Pulitzer Prize winner. He just racked up 5 Grammys for one song about beef. Now, let's address that. I don't like that shit at all. I prayed and I hoped that GNX was going to be his way out, but there's some systematic things that are in there. The thing that everybody wanted him to do was exactly what he did. And I can't be upset at that because that is Kendrick's wave to ride. It's not for me to understand. And yes, the beef, it's over. At the end of the whole Super Bowl, it literally said game over, turn the TV off. But the true meaning behind turn the TV off was because the revolution was just televised. And it's not really about just one culture. It's truly about understanding that in order to have a voice, if I've got to scream, if I've got to be ghetto, if I've got to be ratchet, and that's my only way for you to hear me, at least I'm going to do it through art. We're going to switch subjects for a minute. Now let's think about it. It's sick. It really is. And I really feel bad, and it's because I have daughters that this is so important to me. But think about the OnlyFans community. And you're like, brother, you just switched up in a crazy way. Yeah, I did. But in order for these young girls in this society to feel as though, and I'll be honest, I'm not judging. Whatever you got to do to rank up, just know that it comes with consequences. But what you don't realize in those moments, when you turn on that camera in a different manner, is this is going to have some type of impact. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but when the beauty fades, when the vanity fades, when the glory of what you're doing, which is very much like the rap culture, things start to change. You're no longer worth anything. The worth is what matters. The values is what matters. And I know for a fact that it's tough. It's tough to sit there and think about. It's truly something that we're all going to struggle with. But if a culture feels as though OnlyFans is my only way out, and that's the only way that I can express myself, because what do most OnlyFans creators say? This is my expression of art. It's wild to think that, but I can't be mad at you because you want to express sexually. I can't be mad at you if you need to be seen. That's the way that you pick it. It's not my way. I don't need to understand it. Matter of fact, I'll give you a perfect example. Drake just got on a whole album he dropped on Valentine's Day, and he went to the strip club apparently, and he told everybody to give me a hug. I listened to that track. I listened to it, and I was like, there's no way that I can identify with this. But there was a difference. I would never identify with that because I don't want to understand it. I never want to put myself in a situation to where I feel like I need to walk into a strip club and ask any stripper to be like, give me a hug. That has no value to me. That's not going to add to my greatness. That's not going to align with where I want to go. That alignment is going to be completely different because if I go back and if I walk into a household and I'm looking at my girls and I'm like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Well, that means that at the end of the day, there's a price tag on everything. And sadly, some people can't even understand that they're worth because the price tag of what they're asked to do could be taken away in a second. So I got a question. How can learning about traditions and customs of different cultures contribute to your greater empathy? And how does that add to your unity? I'm gonna look at the chat for a minute. I know I need to catch up. I don't want to go on too many tangents. There's a couple more videos that I really want to get into, but I do want to tell you guys, I'm thankful that you guys are here. It's not too often that I just get to yap about this or that, but I didn't want to go too far with just thinking about the Super Bowl. But I did want to take the time to say, like, hey, there's so much going on in cultures that are close to us that we need to realize that we are missing the connection. And if anybody understands exactly where I sit with this channel, it's all about connection. When I sit and I do UK artists, when I do African artists, when I take the time to do country artists, that's because I've been exposed to so many different cultures that is important to me. I truly feel like I can connect with anybody. That doesn't mean I need to stay in the presence of everybody, but I can connect because I have a level base of understanding. I have a foundation of this might mean something to you. And it doesn't mean that I need to 100% go through the same things that you did, but I can be relatable. And that's what the culture of the world is missing. And it's sad. Ooh, Taylor, you talking. So Taylor says, women are also taught to value beauty over everything else. And for some, if they cultivate, rather deepen their thoughts on seeing their worth, it's more than skin deep. It's, vanity is one thing that can misguide us. And again, I mean, I'll be honest, you know, before I got on this live, I went and shaved, but I can tell you right now, what I do have on is a hoodie, but down below I got on my Sunday, you know, kickback pants, and that's just what I appreciate doing, because at the end of the day, that allows me to be me. And if you really want to know why I wear hoodies, it is truly a silent representation of what has been happening in our culture for many years due to police brutality. I want to be seen, but sometimes it's not okay to be seen. And what does that do? It's programming. Galaxy Mo, I see you said Dominoes by Ren is a good one. Check that out. Being a father of girls, you'll appreciate that song. I do have that on my list. I wanted to take a slight break from Ren only because I did want to give Kendrick his credit and kind of give that run. But there's so many artists, and there's some controversial things that I've got lined up. If you've never heard Joyner Lucas, I'm not a racist, go check that out. That video is coming soon. I was going to record it today, but truly I didn't want to let that take away from what we were trying to go through. There's a couple more videos that I want to give, but I truly feel as though there's a lot missing, and there's a lot of ways that we connect. I'll be honest, we got 18 people in the chat right now. And I'm thankful that you guys are here, because it feels like these are the right people to be here in this chat. I got Samuel L. Jackson up here, and I'm gonna play a clip here in a second, but what it reminds me of is the history and the elders and what it's meant to be. Sometimes I personally have missed. I just had a conversation the other day where it was just like, okay, how do you feel about holidays? And I was like, to be perfectly honest, I don't think about them like I should. I think about them on behalf of my girls, because they got candy, they got this, they got that. But at that moment, in that time, honestly, I completely forgot. And it's sad because the military has told me that some days, some holidays don't mean nothing. But also the government did as well. Because if I've got to spend money to show love, that's a whole different conversation. The economic system is meant to pull us in and never let us go. What could have been candy could have been stocks as well. But we won't get into that. I'm going to go to this next clip. I'm going to read the chat while I do that. But I just want to make sure that we start to see the importance of some of the things that were underlying. And again, I'm not trying to spend too much time on it. If we get to the last clip, we may. If not, then I'm not worried about that. My job and what I'm here for is to educate. I really want us to connect. I really want us to take a step back and say, like, hey, I need to tweak the things that I'm doing. I need to adjust a couple things, because there's some people that I just don't understand that I probably should. Because the struggles that some people may feel as though are normal are not normal. The things that people go through, the Native Americans. Did you ever think for a second that they were going to end up in places to where they have business, but it's constricted in one spot? And that's their legacy of America? It's not their legacy. But if that's what we know now, I'm not going to jump too far, but I know for a fact that the educational system itself is being dismantled. But if your culture was embedded in the beginning and not wanted in the omega, then there's a problem. All right, next clip. I'm talking too much.
This video is for Samuel Jackson and Samuel Jackson only, and I'm going to do my best to get through it without crying, but I cannot make any promises. But I want to explain why his role as Uncle Sam hit me so hard, why it was my favorite part of the entire performance, and why it's making me emotional. Now, while his entire performance as Uncle Sam was stellar, it was jarring, it was challenging, it was so many things, there is one line that he said that has really hit a lot of us deeply, and I know it hit me deeply.
Yo, culture cheat code. Scorekeeper, deduct one life.
Now, for those who don't know, Uncle Samuel Jackson has been about that life. He has been a part of the civil rights movement. He was a part of the Black Panther movement. He has done protests, and he has seen, touched, and felt the hard work our ancestors endured for us to have our freedoms that we have today, if you can say we have freedoms. But the reason why the deduct one lifeline hit me so deeply is because that was the tail end of him saying, oh, you got your buddies with you. Cultural cheat code. You know who I thought about? MLK Jr. Us being a community, they don't like that. That is the cultural cheat code. So what do they do whenever we get together in camaraderie and remind ourselves of who we are? They deduct one life. Did y'all know that Samuel Jackson was an usher at Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral? This is where I get a little emotional, because who better to talk about playing the game than an elder Black man whose hands have touched the result of us trying to play and beat the game? Who better to talk about playing the game than a man who has been around and seen it all, done it all, and tried to navigate it all? Who better than to tell you how to play the white man's game than a Black man who has survived it, you know? Samuel Jackson, if you ever get to see this, I hope you understand and know just how revered and appreciated you are in the Black community. And as much as it saddens me that even in you being an elder, you still are saying the same things and fighting for the same thing you have spent your entire life fighting for, I hope you know that your role in this halftime show, I don't think I even fully grasp the impact that it has and will have for years to come.
If you didn't, if there's nothing that you understood about what was just being said, I don't have to break this down, because there's a great chance that I could break down, and I've seen this clip several times, but to hear it with you guys, to understand that this man held as a pallbearer MLK's casket, and is now on a stage years later with Kendrick Lamar, still, and I mean still, begging and pleading as Uncle Sam, also now the Uncle Tom. And if you don't know what Uncle Tom is, go do research. But for unity. I talked with my mother the other day, and it was probably one of the most beautiful conversations, because I know that as I age and as I sit back, I get to learn so much more about my culture, the things that I've been missing. But there's so much that was just said in that. That man carried and led MLK to his grave. But he was led there because what was censorship and what was supposed to be given as freedom of speech was still a reminder that you're only 3/5 of a person. And if you don't know the history lesson behind 3/5 of a person and what that meant to the constitution of slavery, don't act like it's not in our systems now. The system still devalues the voice of women. It devalues the voice of those that truly need to have a voice. And I'll be honest, I can understand why feminism is the way it is. Because the voice matters. But when you don't have a voice and when you don't know how or who to turn to, then sometimes you lash out. And sometimes you feel ghetto. And sometimes you feel ratchet. And sometimes you just feel like if nobody's going to hear me, I'm going to act in the most crazy way to get your attention. But that's not it. That's not it. Let's go.
You know, one of the lines that has become clear to me in Kendrick Lamar's performance last night is 40 acres and a mule. And that line is particularly potent for many Black Americans. And it happens to be a line that I remember from my education growing up in grade school in the Bronx. And I vaguely remember what it was about. It was something that was promised enslaved people. I can't remember whether I was told it was before or after emancipation, but it had to do with the Civil War. And I've since had my memory refreshed, and it was something that the federal government promised enslaved people that they would get.
Listen up.
And it would help them get a head start. But as with many promises given to Native Americans, they didn't come through. And I never really equated 40.
Hold on a second. Jenny, where you at? When I was growing up, what I want to say before she finishes is my grandfather, I never understood why he didn't talk. But this man would go out into the fields as a farmer. He built his house from the ground up. But he never hardly spoke. He never said a word because he had a vision. He had a vision for the family. He understood that he had 12 kids to raise. But I think deep down, he knew that in order to provide, there was going to have to be something that had to be done. The difference is, my grandfather, and if I let my hair fully grow out, I would have the longest, curliest hair, because he was a proud Cherokee Indian. Married to a Black woman during a time where that still wasn't accepted. You had two minorities that still weren't accepted, but still decided, made a choice to say, we matter, our love matters, and that's all that matters. So Jenny, as you sit here as the Native American that has spoke up in this chat, thank you. Because I know for a fact that it's not about casinos. It's not about what can be taken away from you. It's not about the shows that can be put up. This isn't Yellowstone. This is real life. So thank you. On behalf of your ancestors, and it's not just that I'm talking to one culture. Everyone makes sacrifices. Every single one of our ancestors tried to make a way. But unless we try to understand where these sacrifices were made, then the vision is going to be skewed. And the worst thing that we could have, or they could have had, is a vision that did not give them the chance to be free.
Acres and a mule, because it was not something that really ever touched my life. But in thinking about it this morning, I never really equated it with something else that was very important to American life, which was the Homestead Act. Now, if you don't recall the Homestead Act, for some reason, there's a lot of American history that was that really stayed with me. And the Homestead Act was an act that the federal government felt was extremely important because they wanted to populate the Midwestern part of our country, the prairie. And so they offered 160 acres free and clear to people who would farm the land, ranch the land. I guess it was really only good for farming. But they would give free and clear 160 acres to people, and they had mapped out a huge swath of prairie land. And it was white people who took that land. And that's how a lot of our Midwest cities came into being. And they didn't rescind that promise. They gave 160 acres to people free and clear. All they had to do was stake it out. And this may be apocryphal, but I seem to remember in class hearing how there was a date and they had people lining up and they set off a bell and you could just go and stake out your plot of land and it was yours and you could farm it. And that was the beginning of generational wealth for a lot of white people. A lot of these people came from Germany and Middle European countries, and they got a stake in this country. And here we have enslaved people who were brought over against their will and finally released from bondage and promised for their servitude they would be given 40 acres and a mule, and a mule. And they got nothing. And they had to start from scratch. Just a thought. Think about that. Think about how you'd feel if that promise was made to you and then you were just blown off. Okay, that's it. See you next time.
Did y'all hear that? Did that make any sense? Promises were made. And anybody that understands feeling, anybody that understands what it's like to work for something, be committed, be true to something, sacrifice, and give unconditionally. Because we talk about love and giving unconditionally. Sometimes we will look our boss in the face and give unconditionally. It's a whole nother topic. But this is so important to understand because the history of the Homestead Act came through. The 40 acres and a mule. And it's not just one culture. There's so many promises that have been broken when you believe in the system that leaves you out to dry. Let me go back to talking about the VA, the vets, the pensions, and so forth. There are people currently being offered severance packages to leave. Take it or leave it. The difference is you got an option. You can take the severance package or you can leave it. But even if you're in a relationship with somebody and they don't even tell you to take it or leave it, they just disappear, it hits different. The feelings, the promise, the intimacy, the lies, honestly, that goes into that plays into the history of you. Everything that you felt, that you've invested in, the time, the energy, the commitment is now switched because you no longer matter. And if you can never get those answers, that's why I say when a commitment, when a relationship, when everything truly hits you down deep, shit's different. So just because a lot of people didn't relate with the Super Bowl halftime show, current day, they're dealing with some of the same issues that have now come up because what they believed in, that they served for, that they committed to and sacrificed no longer matter. So now you can relate. Because at the end of the day, when you're told to figure it out, The only response, to be perfectly honest, is okay, fuck around and find out. Because when your back's up against the wall, you're going to respond differently. Your emotions are going to be different. You don't understand what that's like until you can relate. So if you're sitting in your house right now and you don't understand what your children are going through, or you don't understand what your parents are going through, I'm telling you, sit down and talk with them. I had one of the worst relationships with my mother for several years. But I knew for a fact that if I was going to glean the information, the history of what needed to be said, I needed to take the time to understand what she went through, and I had to relate to it, or else I'd never understand. Because my perspective was going to be the only one that mattered. And that was bullshit. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm going to take a second. I want to go through the comments. I see a lot of emotion in here. And again, it really doesn't matter how many people are in here. It truly is something when I sit back and I'm just like, okay, I understand. I truly understand why people would not get it, why people were expecting entertainment, why people were hoping for a different Super Bowl show, because there are so many tracks. And I even did it on a video. Brother, I hope that Kendrick would have did this song. But the artistry and the higher level thinking of where he was at reminded me that I'm still small. I'm still this, you're still this, and it might be the small cog that barely moves the wheel. But it's important for me to understand. I truly hate to see the emotion in the chat, because sadly I know that means that you can relate. But I'm hoping that you can take those feelings, flip them around, and you can understand that those that cannot be heard, if you have that platform, if you have that feeling, if you have that understanding of they need to be heard, hopefully you can be an advocate for the right person. Not everybody deserves to be advocated for. But in order to have some type of unity, in order to have an understanding, then we have to figure out why this divide is happening and start to sew back in ourselves. Because as much as DEI may not matter in the government right now, that shit matters in life. That shit matters. And it's not about who can do this project or this person cooks the best food or whatever the case is. I don't care. You matter as a person. That might be part of the history of that person. And that might be something that's passed along to them. But when the Department of Education itself is truly saying, yeah, we're going to rid ourselves of the history, that way it's untaught, and we're going to glorify things like TikTok. It's on the screen. Because I want you to get something small. This is why some other cultures are actually advancing, because of the STEM programs and so forth. Because what's being pushed is the education. And this is exactly why I'm sitting here. It doesn't matter what race you are in this chat right now. I don't care. I personally don't care. I came here because I do care enough to say that we need to find our own self and be great. Every person has a gift. Every person has a way. Every person has something to give. Just because they haven't figured it out in their time, maybe you might be the catalyst to help them figure that out. I've done that for so many people, and years later, when the thank you comes back, that shit means so much more. Because I know I was a piece, not the way, a piece in bringing them to where they needed to be. But they needed to be heard, they needed to be understood, and they needed to be valued. Because if I cast them out, that could have been the last chance for me to say anything. Shai says, life is too short to be ignorant. I'm going to challenge myself to continue having hard conversations to get different perspectives. That's the beauty of it. Truly, it is. If I only thought from my own perspective, what am I doing? I'm caging myself. And whether I feel like I'm caging myself or protecting a culture or whatever the case may be, I'm only limiting myself because what someone else may have could be exactly what is meant for me. I don't want to be divided. I want to be unified in an effort to be better for everything around me. I can't say, oh no, these people don't matter to me. No, I just don't understand them. And that's why, to be perfectly honest, TikTok was on the table. Because of the grand scheme of this is not educating. That's what it's doing in other countries, but it's not necessarily doing that in the United States. And this is why the programming continues to happen, because we get programmed by a dance. I remember my mother telling me flat out, son, if you knew and studied, everything else, them books, like you do them lyrics, then you'd be better off. But she just said something the other day. I got to pull it up, but I don't want to misquote this. And it's a old adage, and it was a beautiful way of her just telling me to be humble and sit down. And if you don't know that reference, that's also a Kendrick reference. I know divided we fall. I know that we are going to have issues along the way, and we're not going to understand things the first time around. That's fine. But she said, if you want to hide something from the black folks, it's an old adage, put it in a book. Think about that. What you are guided away from, because this has nothing to do with just one culture, but if you put something in a book, but it's hidden from you, if you are not given the way to educate or be educated, then you'll never know. One of the things I learned most recently over the past couple of years was the stock market. And this ties into the delete one life line that Samuel L. gave. What was so important about that was once I learned to trade, I learned about economics, I learned about how I can mature my money, things started to be different. I started to see a different light. The system no longer became a system for me. I found a way, not the way, but a way out. This is the depths of knowing versus being ignorant. And it takes time. Everything takes time to learn. But for a man who understands, I have sat with Egyptians, I've sat with Qataris, and the thing that I was told from the media to fear and hate was the same thing that brought me some of the best joy in my life. Sitting down, seeing a family aspect, understanding exactly like, man, this is beautiful. What they do, how they move, is beautiful. I started to take down the walls of who I was because I knew there was more to a situation than what was being presented to me. But I had to be educated enough to walk this world as a nomad. I'll be honest. I've been literally almost everywhere. But I had to be willing to walk those grounds and experience it for myself versus seeing something on a screen and being told, this is what it is. And to be perfectly honest, if that's enough to give me my 40 acres and a mule, I've walked way further than that. So it's not about the promises that it was made to me or my ancestors. What was fought for, what MLK fought for, wasn't just black people. It was so cultures could understand that there is more out there than just what we're given. We can understand others if we elect to. So my question is, what are your elections on a daily basis? How can you participate in these intercultural exchanges and dialogues that actually help break down these stereotypes and build stronger foundations for who you don't know? When's the last time you've been in your community and said, I don't have any idea of what this group is going through, but I'm willing to say, and I'm willing to dedicate some time to commit to learning something that I thought that I feared. So this inclusive thing that is being decimated and dismantled in the U.S., if you're outside of the U.S., I hope for a fact that you can take the time and understand that sometimes it's not about what you hear. And it's where it reverts back to the halftime show itself. I couldn't hear Kendrick the way that I thought I should. But when I stood back, I gained a different perspective and I saw it for what it was. I could hear everything. I knew exactly what needed to be said. I knew exactly what needed to be done. And I might not be promised everything, but I needed to try to put myself in position to gain everything that I hoped would be given to me. And if anything, at least I know I'm smart enough to understand that anybody that makes me a promise, they might not keep it. Because the system is rigged. If you look at the whole stage itself, the system itself has already told us it's a game. So what I'm going to do after this live, I'm going to copy, I'm going to post what I have written several months ago, and it's called Board Games. And it's a play on words, just like anything. I'm a poet. But it's called Board Games. And to help you understand where I'm going with that is, it's not the board game that is the problem. It's when people get tired of playing with us, we become the board games that they play. And once they're done, I'm not going to ruin it. You guys will figure out what that means at the end of that lesson. But this is why this type of artistry is so important. This is why understanding other cultures is so important. And this is why when a system is guiding us in a way that may not, truly may not, have our best interests, we need to be thinking for ourselves. Because what we know ourselves to be is probably the most important part. And it's gonna start to align back. I'm gonna get sweatshirts made. I don't care who buys it or not. But when I say I am, I see you, Joanne. But you're right. Just as you put in this chat right now, I am a poet. I am an artist. I am creative. And if you guys can take a second before we end this, I want to hear what you are. If you feel like you're influential, if you feel like you're humble, if you feel like the main thing in your life is I am a mother, I am a sister, I am a father, this is what I hope that you guys can bring to this chat. Because at the end of the day, I've got a slight announcement at the end. I'm still working on a few things, but I want to know who you are. I really do not play about that. I want to know what it means to you to be who you are. Because the hardest thing to do in life is to figure out who you are. Why? Because the systems that we ask ourselves to be in require us to be something slightly different. But it doesn't mean that we know who we are. It might mold us into finding who we are, but the system, at the end of the day, will say thank you for your service and treat you like a number. It's really sad, but it's the truth. So if you guys can take a second, I'm gonna wrap this up here in a minute. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I'm gonna try to stick to an hour and a half most lives just for future content. I know there's been a lot of talk about the halftime show, and it really wasn't to dive into the actual beef between politics or the actual Drake Kendrick thing. And I'm glad I didn't focus on that. It's really about you looking and reflecting inside yourself and understanding that you matter. You are something, and you are somebody that truly matters in this grand scheme of life. Because what I do understand is all the world's a stage. And when you understand what that means and how you start to play that, it starts to be treated a little bit differently. Because once you learn, are you the pawn? Or are you trying to move in position to be the king or the queen? You're no longer the board game. I'm not going to ruin that lesson. But I feel as though as you read that, you will find some substance about, damn, who am I? And as I wrote that, it was part of me at that time, truly feeling like I'm part of a game, of a system, of something that is greater than me, but does not define me. So I'm going to read a couple. So far from heaven, she says, I'm fragile, always feeling like I'm walking on the edge of a sword. Look, I can tell you right now, no matter what you're going through, I might never understand. And I know I've talked to a couple other people. I heard you want to be a mod. Don't take for a second. I don't care whether this is live or not. Reach out. Because this is my whole goal of trying to figure out how we connect. This small community. There's so many fans from so many different areas. And I know some people will not join these lives, and that's not for them. And that's okay. But what I do know is this small group has an identity. And it might be seeking peace and knowing that something is seeking you. But I love to see you say and accept that you are fragile. And then Joanne comes in and says, I'm a writer and a creator. You are. There's no doubt. For a person to tell me you need to go live, you have made me create. You have made me open up my eyes to see that I can do more. I can be more. So you're not just a writer or a creator, you're a motivator. And as you stood up on that TED Talk stage, it doesn't matter if that script had to be memorized. You personally impacted me, and I thank you for that. I love to see the hugs in the chat. Like you guys really don't understand that Galaxy Mo, I don't really know you guys. I've never met you guys, but the fact that we can connect virtually and show love to each other and show respect for each other, that's where the greatness comes into play. Jenny says, I've forgotten who I was, leaving corp world, and I'm relearning slowly. You know, I got to be honest. As I sit here and I think about, like, okay, where do I need to be? What do I need to be doing? There's so many questions that I have unanswered, and I'm going to have to face those things as I walk out this door. There's a true comfort of me being in Turkey right now. And it doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter, you know, the system that I'm in or have learned and adapted to over the past 20 years. There's a lot of unknowns. And the things that I'm going to adapt to and feel closest to are going to be those knowns. So I have to remind myself, and this is why I tell you guys, remind yourself of who you are. That way in those unknown moments, you feel better because you can remind yourself that you have something to give. You are special. When I say I am, that's why I said I feel like I've got to be, you know, creating something, whether it be another sweatshirt or so forth. I am a myriad of things. And I forget that. The things that I degrade myself on or downgrade or even say, like, that's not worth it, that's part of my gift. And each of us has a gift. Lifelong learner. Kia, me free. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a seeker. I love that you say that. And the reason why I say that is the thing that I'm always looking for is something new, and not in a way of, how do I explain this? Not in the way of, I think the best way to explain it is I just don't want to remain content with being or not knowing enough. I know I'm never going to know everything, and I don't want to know everything. I think that would be draining. I think that would be exhausting. But to know for a fact that I can take a moment and, even if it's 20, 30 minutes, to just learn and be present with whatever I'm tending to, and it makes a difference, that could be that vital piece of information that's given to someone else. And I applaud that. I am humbled every time I learn something, because I'm just like, you thought you were this, now you learn something else. So it's not me basking in ignorance or arrogance. I love being humble enough to say, like, I'm willing to sit down and not try to be the teacher and to be something that I am not. So before we get this, I know we got about 10 people in here. I know we're running a little bit long, but drop a I am. If that means something to you, if that mantra truly means you are seeking something, if you are trying to find something, if you are trying to be better today, drop a I am. And I know this is kind of derived from the Ren videos, because I did go on a rant because of where I was feeling, but this probably is considered a rant as well. But I need you guys to understand that where you're at right now is not your final destination. I am is truly something that I have to tell myself. And when I look in the mirror, I have to remind myself that I am a myriad of things. I am a father. I am about to be a veteran. I am humble. I am courageous. I am aggressive. But I am also a man who is seeking more. And every time I hop on with you guys and just seeing the I ams in this chat, no matter if you've met me personally, I want to make sure that you get the true person of who I am. Because I can be stubborn. I can be frustrating. I can be, I can be dismissive. I can be a myriad of things. But those are also the things that I need to work on, because I know when something is valuable and when something or someone I need to connect with means something, it needs to align with where I'm headed. Because what we need out of life is not the system itself, but relatability, humbleness, and partnership that truly just gives us a place that we belong. So Jenny says it's nice. It's a nice discussion with open minds. That's all I'm here for. I can tell you right now, I'm not about to sit here and pander to everybody. I don't care if it's 20 people that show up. That's what's important to me. If you guys say, hey, I'm gonna be willing to show up and just be part of this experience of life, this moment in life, and you've dedicated roughly about an hour and 15 of that, I don't want to waste your time. I want to continue to mend in and correct the melting pot of the world, which seems to be slowly burning. So if you guys got questions, you guys are free to ask. I'll sit here for a minute, but I'm truly thankful that you guys just took a little bit of time with me today. And like I said, a lot of people probably saw the thumbnail like, oh, he's about to go on this whole tangent. No. It's really not that. I truly take the bird's eye view perspective, and that's where I try to sit with things. Because it's not about what I see. It's not about what I'm doing. It's truly about where I can connect with you guys and say, hey, you matter. We all matter. And if anything, I at least want to take the time to connect with you. So, what I'm also going to do, I'll probably take a little bit of, I'll probably take a minute to reorganize a couple things. But yes, finally, if you have been in a couple of different chats and so forth and seen it, I do have the Discord. And what I will tell you right now is I'm not going to sit online all day and have these massively long conversations. But what I do want to do is allow you guys to enter in to the Discord, have discussions between each other, and I do want to host some discussions. I know the Patreon is a little bit different. Again, I'm not trying to put people behind a paywall. I'm not trying to, allow people to, oh, you got to pay for what I'm giving. What I have been gifted in life, sometimes the best thing was because it was free. But conversation and freedom of speech should be free. And I do want to make sure that I stick to that mantra. Because wherever this goes and grows is what it's meant to be. And who knows who may be connected to another person. You look at LinkedIn, like that's the big thing right now. Like, I want to be linked in with you guys as the note takers that can say, hey, I found something today from a person that I did not know, I've never met. And the crazy thing is, when we talk about the system, we've had some of the best friendships over the years occur because of gamers. Gamers have truly given, their life to try to meet the other person on the other side of that screen just because they could hear the voice of another. So I do want to start those conversations. Okay. Do you think it's giving up, deciding to go it alone, homesteading off grid? I'll be honest. No. The reason why I say that, and thank you for that question, Galaxy Mo. I can tell you right now, some of the best experiences that I've had is because I went alone. And that's not always the best way. That's just the way I was programmed at the moment. Because one, I'll be perfectly honest and candid about it. Sometimes I felt as though the experience itself needed to be, you need to walk this path alone. But sometimes on the back end, of course, I'm human. I wish someone else would have been there with me. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in that time of decision making, whatever I needed to do for myself, if it meant that I was going to put someone else at a disadvantage, then I needed to walk that alone. And the crazy part is I've had several discussions about being off the grid. But I do think the one thing that I will keep in mind is I don't want to be off the grid so much to where I can't reach out and still experience that culture of expressing and expanding with others. Because it's just a part of my life. The whole inclusion thing means that I don't want to be separated from the world itself. I want to integrate. But I just want to do it with the right people that have the greatest intentions for where we are heading. Not where I'm heading, but where we are heading. And I think that's different. Bell says, if this world were mine, I would take these dreams and multiply. The dreams is that if many people we could reach, we try to understand each other. It's time for me to wrap this up, but one of the greatest things that I do, and I'm glad I am transitioning out of the military because there's plenty of tables that I had a seat at the table. And what I quickly learned is everybody that had a seat at that table didn't have the best interest of those that were doing the job. And that shit's tough. And I'm going to be completely honest. This is me working with special forces. This is me working and being in the thick, literally being on the ground during the Afghan evac, and knowing for a fact that I might face so much, but yet I'm going to give respect to a culture. So I'll tell you a quick story. As I sat down, I was a part of a team, the team, that had the first plane, and I will post these pictures elsewhere because again, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's gonna understand. But when that first plane was circling in the air and it was potentially an issue where there was some hostility on that plane, I never armed up. And it's because I understood the culture of I'm hoping that I meet the same people that I have previously come in contact with that I can greet as they open this door off this plane. And something that is not well known is that there was 3 weapons on the very first plane from that Afghan evac. And the story that had been told on the news was a heroic story. But when I saw that phone drop down from that plane, there was nothing but mass hysteria happening at that time. Please open this door. Is security set up? We need to get out of this plane. However, once those doors opened, the first thing I saw was a mother and a child. And I said, no matter what's going on, I don't think that anything's going to happen. But I took that from being part of cultural experiences. So as much as everyone wanted to have aggression, I had to take a different approach. And I value that to this day, knowing that I did not have to ask for more, but I had to do the right thing because of what I had experienced. And if I'm looking back at everything that we've talked about, the experiences that I previously had led up to how I reacted in the moment for a culture that wasn't mine, that I didn't know much about. But what I did know was if I greet you with peace, hopefully you'll extend the same back. That's all I got. So I do appreciate your time. I know this is a little bit longer than I expected, but I will put the link up for the Discord and so forth. Again, give it a couple days. Let me kind of iron that out. But I'm thankful for you guys. I really am thankful that you guys just came in here. I don't care how many people are in here. I don't. But I'm blessed to share this time with you guys, and I appreciate you all. So be on the lookout. As promised, I will post the lesson that I said I would post. That will be public view in the chat. And honestly, there is a portion in the Discord to where I'm asking you guys to send me topics. And what I mean by that is I do want to start to get some of the things that you guys can provide and be present in those moments, because I'm going to have a little bit of time, and I've stepped away from writing for a second, but when you know it's time, it's time. So again, I'm not going to hold you guys up. Thank you all for truly being here. I hope you got a little bit of history out of this. I hope you understand a little bit more about the halftime show, and I hope you understand that artistry itself it's important. This isn't a gallery that we're walking into when we're looking at a person. We can't just sit and stare at somebody and think that we're going to get it all. But the main thing that that painting can't do that a person can is they can answer. And I'll leave you on that. On that note, y'all stay blessed. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here.